A very good morning to ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Fly FM. Now it's 10 a.m. sharp, and I hope you guys have a wonderful morning. This is Vinjay, the hottest DJ here for serving you the most leading news of the hour. Your news, our business. Today, our topic will be what's happening to our news. Nowadays, news is ambient and can also be accessed freely. However, in an age of real-time information and limitless distraction, journalists can no longer assume that their professionalism has a secure value. Yet, it remains hard to imagine a civil society that functions effectively or a citizenry that can hold its government democratically to account. Without a self-confident independent media with professional ethic that ascribe of itself standard, however hotly these are disputed. Before we continue our topic, let's hear the opinion from public on what are their thoughts for the news in this modern era. Do you watch news consistently every day?
Yes.
I think so.
No.
No.
What do you think about our mainstream news nowadays in Malaysia?
I think it's not that good because in Malaysia, most of the news are being censored due to the benefit of the government.
For me, the mainstream news media in Malaysia is doing their job very well because I can get the important and useful information from them.
I think our mainstream news media is more focused on the benefit that government gave us rather than the negative effects that caused to the citizens of Malaysia.
Will you directly absorb the information from what they have reported?
For one, I will take in the information first and then filter for all the news because honestly, I don't trust the news reported to Malaysia that much. Yeah.
No, because sometimes the statistic they provide is not accurate.
Depends on what kind of news they report. If it's political news, I might think twice.
After we have heard the opinion from public, as we can see that majority of the youngsters will choose to think twice before the news implant into their mind. Whether the sources are reliable is based on where it comes from. However, the respondents doesn't represent to all the Malaysian. Today, we have invited a VIP guest from the news industry. Who is him? And there is a special reason for him to accept this interview. Let's have a break. Don't go away and we will be right back. Where's dinner?
Well, I thought you'd be home a couple hours ago, and I put everything away.
What? What is this? Pizza?
You had just called me. I had no much time.
Dinner's ready, but it's pizza? Pizza? Pizza?
Honey, please don't be so loud. Please. Let go of me! Let go of me!
Get in the kitchen!
No!
Do you want to see more hurt?
Don't ignore domestic abuse. Speak now and call 999.
Welcome back to Fly FM. Today, we are very honored to invite Mr. Adrian Lai, who is a specialist writer at New Straits Times. Pleasure to meet you, Mr. Adrian.
Well, Jack, thank you so much for having me here today. It is my pleasure to be here.
First and foremost, thank you for taking time from a busy schedule for this interview. Let me have a short introduction regarding to Mr. Adrian. Before that, he was a former news reporter at the Malaysian Insider, and now he is a specialist writer at the Politics Desk for the New Straits Times.
Yup, you are right.
Well, Mr. Adrian, now you are as a journalist, we'll really appreciate if you could answer a few questions from us to discuss and share your viewpoints and thoughts on this news nowadays in Malaysia.
Sure, no problem.
First of all, as a former reporter from the Malaysian Insider, what was your thought when the Malaysian Insider was shutting down?
Well, the sad end of the Malaysian Insider is devastating to Malaysian journalism in more ways than one. It was one of the only news organizations left in the country that combined institutional experience and conscientious, principled journalism. In the ranks of TMI were seasoned reporters and editors who were formerly from the mainstream media and whose experience deserves some mention here, because Malaysians need to understand what kind of a loss we have collectively sustained.
So, Mr. Adrian, what do you think about our mainstream papers in Malaysia?
Mainstream papers such as the New Straits Times and the Star have institutional significance, having trained a legion of reporters for decades. As papers linked to the ruling coalition in Malaysia, they may have lacked the ability to go for the independent and investigative news that mattered, but they had the history, resources, and scope to train journalists in the traditional style, like to beat reporting, group assignments, house style and rules, and mentorship.
Mr. Adrian, for those alternative newspapers, so how do you report the news?
When the likes of Malaysia Kini and other alternative press came into the nation's consciousness, their reporters covered the stories these mainstream papers could or would not report. There were, however, challenges, such as training new or young journalists with limited resources. This also meant covering issues or events that were more reactive. There wasn't the luxury of having reporters concentrate or specialize in an education or parliamentary beat, for example.
Well, before we understand the challenges that the journalists face in TMI, let's take a break and we will be right back, so stay tuned.
During the hot weather of month, we were busy engaging at outside. It can be easy to stop and take regular drink of water. Staying hydrated is an important way for us to keep cool down and prevent heat-related illnesses, including heat exhaustion and heat stroke. This summer, take a second to take a seat. Stay hydrated. This is brought to you by Fly FM.
Welcome back to Fly FM. Now we have the former journalist from the Malaysian Insider, Mr. Adrian, with me together with you guys. So, Mr. Adrian, just now we have mentioned as a former journalist in TMI, you face a lot of obstacles. So, what challenges that the journalists face in TMI?
As we can see, with TMI's recent challenges, the added pressure of a government that seeks to repress freedoms even further means that Malaysia is far from having a stable of accountable, responsible, and ethical news organizations to compete with each other. There are very few online sites left that practice journalism with the sort of checks and processes traditional news organizations practice. In fact, there seems to be a new mushrooming of online sites that claim to produce news, but which actually aggregate or rehash existing articles. Obviously, this is not just a Malaysian problem, but all over the world. Journalists and news organizations are facing serious challenges to do with sustainability, declining sales, and clickbait content.
What happens when the conscientious and experienced leave the mainstream media for the online news scene only to find it is commercially unsustainable or unpredictable?
Many of the finest Malaysian journalists I know have ventured into other professions. Some are still fighting the good fight in the alternative news organizations we have left. Of those left in the mainstream media, some are doing what they can, some are partial to the ruling coalition, and some are just resigned to staying in a more stable and secure employment.
Last but not least, Mr. Adrian, what do you think about the future of our news?
While the mainstream papers still have a role to play in the media landscape in the country, one only has to think about how citizens would have known about issues like 1MDB without the likes of the Malaysian Insider. They call the press the fourth estate, the fourth branch of the state that keeps an eye on the executive, the legislature, and judiciary for the people. The press is necessary to hold these major institutions accountable, to guard against tyranny and to preserve liberty. Malaysians have been sharing and commenting on the articles produced by alternative news sites for years. Now they should ask themselves how much they value quality journalism that can truly serve as Malaysia's fourth estate. Are they willing to pay for news? Will they support other existing alternative news sites, or will they push for press freedom? Or worse, will they do anything at all? Try to think about it.
That's all from us. Once again, thank you so much to Mr. Adrian Lai for sharing your intensive experience and spending a valuable time with us.
You're most welcome, and I hope you will become a good journalist as well in one day.
Sure, I will. Thank you so much. Let's have a break and we will be right back afterwards. Bye, Sylvia.
Bye bye, Jack.
Stop texting.
Okay, I know.
Love your life. Don't text while driving.
Welcome back to Fly FM. As a wrap-up, in the age of digital revolution, the media must be committed to upholding human rights, democracy, and the rule of law. But from government's point of view, the better Malaysia is media with responsibility to national security and government's credibility, and the media should be controlled from being manipulated by subversive elements in the country. Although the journalist will face many challenges when writing good news, but an ethical journalist should practice for reporting the truth. That's all for today. Thank you so much. Once again, I'm Vinjay Im from Fly FM. Have a nice day.